everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we decided to try something new. We're trying a new podcast platform today, which hopefully will be better quality audio, better quality video than our typical setup. And of course, I decided to do this. Let's wait until the week when I, A, have a cold. Not COVID, negative COVID test, hooray, just a cold. But B, also, new glasses today for the first time in 6 years or something, so my eyes aren't quite focusing right. So I am coming to you live and in HD in my least flattering state of the last, 700 episodes we've done. So, Tony, as everything in life, timing is everything.
Remember when Bart, all in one week, had to get
yes,
boots
that is
for
exactly
his posture and hair scalp stuff and
yes, thick plates. Yes, I am not wearing orthopedic shoes. That is basically my scalp's fine. But yes, other than that, yes, I am basically literally that episode. Yes.
Perfect. So this is what we're trying, something new, as Tom said, but this is also new. We're doing a little mini episode of the Buckeye Weekly podcast talking about the Jim Harbaugh situation. And who knows, Tom, as we're talking, it may become an emergency instant reaction episode because he has been rumored now to, first it was the Raiders, then he interviews with the Vikings, and now it seems there's some real smoke with the Dolphins. And the Dolphins thing is interesting to me because Stephen Ross is the owner of the Dolphins, big-time Michigan donor, booster, has said he would not take Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. But I sure think that interview with Minnesota lets Stephen Ross know, Jim Harbaugh is leaving. So if you want him, now's the time. It sure feels like he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like if he's not gone, it is because no one in the NFL wants him. He is, he has. It feels like this whole thing with him has reached the bar. The lights just came on at the bar, and he's looking around, and it's like, well, the really good looking girl who I was kind of making eyes at earlier, well, she left with someone else. She went back to Vegas, but there's this Norwegian girl over there. She's she's from Minnesota. She looked good, and then the Cuban girl down from Miami. There's. I feel like I'm not getting quite as picky as I was at 10 p.m. I don't want to drive my car back home alone to Ann Arbor, so I kind of want to go somewhere else. So that feels like kind of where this process is right now, and if Harbaugh has basically let them know, hey, I really would like to leave, and you're starting to see the reports from the NFL side as well that Harbaugh really wants to leave, which I think is telling to me because you had the reports earlier about him and the Raiders, and it was all coming from the college side. Now you got it coming from the NFL side. That tells me that NFL teams are hearing this. NFL teams are sensing this. That's what the NFL teams are hearing. So if the Vikings want Jim Harbaugh, the Vikings can probably have Jim Harbaugh, and if they don't, maybe it's the Dolphins, or maybe he decides the Dolphins are a better fit if both of those end up getting offered. But yeah, it feels like he's not necessarily being as choosy as he might have been if this was really well, I really love where I am, but maybe I'm gonna go be somewhere else now.
Because right now you are 2 days away from signing day, and of course most of Michigan's class is already in due to early signing day, but this is still a time when coaches are out recruiting, and his assistants, those that remain, we know Mike McDonald, his defensive coordinator, is back off to Baltimore. So this is also a time when you should be interviewing coaches and trying to fill out your staff. Spring football is a little over a month away. There's winter workouts beginning. There's a lot going on, and you are in Minnesota, or whether it's maybe you're interviewing via Zoom, who knows? But you are certainly interested. You are talking, and now this is 3 teams that you have been interested in or showing interest to you, not to mention the original Bears thing that I don't think really ever was anything. But now these all feel much more real because, like you said, it's NFL people talking about it. And now it gets to the point where if he does return to Michigan, the only way that I believe he will be there for the long term is with like a $25 million buyout. Like, if he comes back and a buyout is like a $6 million or whatever, that's nothing. That means nothing, and he's going to be doing this every single year. And if he's successful, even more so. So now you're Michigan. You are thinking he just beat Ohio State. He won the Big Ten. He went to the playoffs. He's kind of got us here. However, this was the first time he's done it in 6 years. So you've got a pretty sizable sample. And to base all of your decision on whether to bring him back, to pay him, to live with him for the rest of your life, basically, like these are major decisions by the major decision makers that it's not just going to be necessarily for next year or whatever. Like, you have to decide, do we want him for the next 5-6 years, knowing that you are making that commitment? He probably isn't, unless, like I said, that buyout is there.
Well, if he can't get an NFL job now, coming off of, like you said, beat Ohio State for the first time, won the Big Ten for the first time, went to the college football playoff for the first time, had an opening of a team that he had an direct affiliation with the Raiders. That's where he started his coaching career. Had an opening with the team where he was the longtime quarterback in Chicago. Have an opening in Miami with a huge Michigan booster as the owner of the team. Like, if you can't get an NFL job now with all of that, plus your buyout is like laughably low. I forget what it was, like $1.5 million or something, which is like, there aren't MAC coaches that have that kind of buyouts, but it's a lot closer to a MAC buyout than it is to even a mid-level Big Ten team buyout. Like, I'm sure Brett Bielema's buyout is more than that, because he had that very, very small contract after last year, and after the 2020 season where they kind of renegotiated to just try and get one more year and then sort of see where he stood after that. It's essentially free for an NFL team to hire him at the high point of his coaching career as a college coach, with a number of teams that have, personal ties to him, either personally or just professionally. Like, if you can't get hired now, and then you've got Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo and Dax Hill and Hassan Haskins, all those guys, and you got to come to Columbus next year. Like, if he doesn't go now, I don't know that there's going to be I don't know that the buyout necessarily matters next year, because it's going to be like, well, who's coming after him next year that isn't going after him now? What is he going to do next year to make himself more interesting or more intriguing to an NFL team? I don't really see it.
Well, and maybe not just next year, but the year after, because I'm surprised that he, after his career at Michigan, that he is still this hot-ish commodity, and it really just took 1 year, so there's no reason why he couldn't do that again somewhere down the line and surprise people and just reheat basically on the hot stove there. But I feel like this is something where, and I've said this before, I was told when he took the job, he promised 3 years, like, I'll get you back in there, we'll fix everything, then I got to head back to the NFL. So, like, this has always been something he's had his eye on. And if this is his first real chance, and he's had some options, and maybe it's one of those things where I just need to get back in there, and then I can go from the Dolphins to wherever. Like, you treat the NFL as a stepping stone to another NFL job, like the one you want, and you get a couple of years there, and then you take that next step up to maybe a job that isn't open now, but you have your eye on, and you don't want to risk being at Michigan and trying to be successful long enough for that job to open. And so maybe you go to a place knowing that I've got 2 years to be bad, because all of these open jobs aren't necessarily open for good reason. Or maybe he's going to wait for Zach Taylor to get fired after next year, and then jump on the Joe Burrow train, which would be a very wise move in my opinion. But I feel like I would be surprised at this point if he came back to Michigan. And we did this a few weeks ago. I said, Tom, is he back, yes or no? You were on the side of no, that he's going to head to the NFL. I was still on the side that he would be back. And now I think we're both on the proper side of the fence.
Yeah, which is my side of the fence, as usual. Welcome. First of all, welcome. I'm with you there. It feels like this is tipped way past 50-50 at this point that he leaves. And again, if he doesn't leave, it's not for lack of trying. He is very much interested in leaving. Again, the sourcing of stuff where, a couple of weeks ago it was Bruce Feldman reports, and Bruce Feldman's a fantastic reporter, but he's a college reporter. He's getting his stuff from the college side of the game. When you started having the NFL stuff, when he started interviewing with, it wasn't just, well, it's the Raiders and it's a very personal thing for me and I love the Davis family and I really would love it. Like, it's not just, well, this is the perfect situation. It's just, this is a situation. This is literally a situation in the NFL. I'm going to go to, I'm going to go to Miami. I'm going to go to Minnesota. Like, what do these places have in common? The Raiders and the Dolphins and the Vikings and the Bears, like, what do those have in common in terms of a situation where it's like, oh, this would be the perfect situation for me? It's like, well, they have open NFL coaching, head coaching roles. That's about it. It's like, you've got Tua in Miami, right? You've got Fields in Chicago. But, I mean, I don't know, the Vikings have a quarterback. It feels like the Vikings. So, I mean, it's not
Kirk
like
Cousins.
Okay, so no. So it's not like, well, Chicago is so appealing because they've got this really talented young quarterback where they have potentially the Joe Burrow type quarterback there, or Tua, maybe Tua's that down in Miami. Like Kirk Cousins, like, okay, cool. They have a fancy new stadium, so that's kind of new, I guess, and that's kind of like, well, that's kind of like Las Vegas, so it's kind of the same thing. But yeah, it feels to me like he has made up his mind, and the standards for what it's going to take to get him there keep dropping. And I can't, when you lose Mike McDonald on top of, some of the players we talked about earlier, that tells me, A, the coaching staff recognizes probably, like, the band might not be together all that long at this point, but also, from Harbaugh's perspective, now you got to go nail another defensive coordinator hire, because he nailed that defensive coordinator hire. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. But as we have seen, like Ryan Day has learned, you can nail one defensive coordinator hire, and then if that guy leaves after a year, like, well, nailing that second defensive coordinator hire is not necessarily, even if you got the first one right, that's no guarantee that you get the second one right. And if you don't get the second one right, well, especially if you don't have an offense like Ryan Day's offense that you can lean on, like, that might not go so well in that second year.
Yeah, the defensive losses are huge. I also think the negative recruiting that would come if you come back, all the guys you're recruiting are going to hear about is how Jim Harbaugh. Well, you can go to Michigan, but who knows how long Jim Harbaugh is going to be there? Mm-hmm. He's dancing with the NFL, and he's going to continue to do that. And he's going to be he's going to be looking for himself, and he's not going to be worried about you. He's going to be worried about his future more than your future. And you tell the parents that enough, and they start to believe that, and it becomes a very difficult situation to recruit through. And so there's another reason why it's like he's done some damage, and when you do that much damage, you better be on your way out, because it's rare to do all of this damage and you're like, well, no, I'm going to move back in. Like, but you sold the house, and the other people were going to flip it, but now you've decided to move in after pulling down some walls and shaking up the foundation. And generally it's, well, let somebody else clean this up. I'm out of here, And now he might, if he chooses to go back, it almost doesn't make sense at this point, because even I said it a week or so ago, even if he's 60-40 coming back, he's still 50-50 completely up near, because he's so invested in looking. And if you're that invested in looking, you are invested in getting out. And so he's looking to get out. And now if Miami, I mean, first of all, not a bad place to live. You would kind of have a quarterback, but also, the expectations there. Nick Saban wasn't able to win there, but Nick Saban wasn't able to win in the Big Ten. Jim Harbaugh's been able to win in the Big Ten. So there's some ability there. I think at this point, if he comes back, I will be surprised. I don't know where Michigan goes. Do they just stick with Josh Gaddis? And we'll get into that once all of this really breaks down, because you would think that there would be a big time coaching search, but also what we've learned from doing this and covering Ohio State, there aren't always big time coaches out there, and so they got lucky the year Urban Meyer was available, or lucky, and they gave the job this last time to a no-time head coach. So it's not always like, well, they pick whoever they want. It's not necessarily how it goes.
Right, and it is not easy to nail those. And one of the things that, if you read Michigan message boards or Michigan sites, one of the things that they will shake their fists at about Ohio State is how Ohio State this dude never misses. Like, that's Ohio State hiring football coaches. It's just every head football coach that Ohio State has hired going back to 1951 as a full-time head football coach is in the College Football Hall of Fame or is headed there. And, if Ryan Day kind of continues, he will join that group as well. But, Woody Hayes, Earl Bruce, John Cooper, Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer. That's 5 in a row where, you have not had your Rich Rodriguez at Michigan. You have not had your Brady Hoke at Michigan. You have not had, your Gary Moeller at Michigan. You have not had, you go through all these other schools. Penn State has had some clunkers. Bill O'Brien did not, Bill O'Brien was fine for what he was, but is James Franklin going into the College Football Hall of Fame? Like, probably not. And Ohio State just has not had a bad hire. That's just, and that is very unusual. So yeah, we can go through all those potential names later, but you look at sort of the Vegas numbers on like potential replacements, and Josh Gaddis is at the top of the list. And sometimes hiring a young new assistant who's a first-time head coach at a big program like that, sometimes that works out, and sometimes that very, 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 very much does not. So that that is far from an automatic home run if that's the route they go.
And we'll wrap up. Even the guy you left out, Luke Fickell, the worst of the Ohio State hires.
Yeah, he wasn't a full-time hire, but yeah.
And he's on his way. Like, Michigan would probably really love to have that guy, and that's the one guy that Ohio State's like, 1 year is enough, and you see what he's doing now. So, Tom, anything else from the Jim Harbaugh world that you want to touch on before we go?
I think that'll do it. We aim to go 10 to 15 minutes, and of course we're way over that already. So we're right on track here. So yeah, that's I think we've done what we needed to do, and then we'll be back with normal shows probably later on today, and then later on this week as well. And then, as you said, maybe have a lot more Harbaugh conversation later this week as well.
Yeah, normal shows, Tom. That's what we strive for. So that will do it for this episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you shortly.